session was recorded live in San Antonio, Texas for the 2003 CALLERLAB Conference. This is tape number 12. Our product, open forum. Should we change prod?
Not only are we talking about adapting the choreographic aspect of our product, but we're also talking about how we organize it, how we do dances, what we wear. All those our market surveys have identified as key factors in the decision-making process of a non-dancer to get involved in square dancing. And so we'd like your opinions. My wife thinks square dance clothes are wonderful. It's a chance for her to dress up. But you poll a number of other people who find that they just put them on because that's the only way you will let them in the door of a square dance. And that's all their close friends' barrier into coming into square dancing. Or is it really a barrier, or is it just a convenient excuse that covers up something else? We talk about time commitment, the time and length of lessons, and the time commitment of what an individual is willing to do. These are some of the subjects we hope to broach out here today, and we'd like to hear your opinion.
Just if I could just say a couple other things about there are some ground rules for today's discussion, and I'd like it to be as lively as possible and very opinionated as possible, because what we really envision this whole thing to be. I love the Jerry Springer thing, because we really want this to be like a Jerry Springer thing. You just got to let it rip out here, and so there will be no if someone stood up and said something that they think that square dancing should be this, there will be no one that can say, hey, listen, buddy, you're out in left field, sit down and shut up. We don't want any of that. We really want this to just let it rip. I really want, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody has an opinion about square dancing, so we really want to hear it. And out of all this, maybe there will be some wisdom at some point where we can all, take a look at everything, and this could be the genesis of the new product, the new image. Maybe there doesn't need to be a new image in your opinion, but in fact, this is a no-holds-bar WWF, wrestling of square dancing. Just let it rip. I want to hear what you think. I mean, I know what I think about square dancing and what we should think. I think we should be, excluding anybody over the age of 40 and include only people who are under 30, mandate short dresses and blonde hair. And I think it's important that everybody who dances has an income level exceeding $60,000, and to dance at my club, you should be paying $50 a night in advance for 6 weeks only. That's my opinion. And I think they should be building me a hall and subsidizing my living. That's what I think. And they should call me Your Highness. But that's the type of thing, obviously that's fairly radical. Not far off my mark, mind you, but fairly radical. And so that's kind of like how we want to do this. We don't really want it to be a situation where you want to stand up and say what you think everybody wants to hear. We really want to hear what you think needs to be done. And we've heard Jim talk about an image change, but Jim's never actually said what he really wants. Oh, actually, you did. You said something about spandex, about people wearing spandex to come to square dancing. Now, see, you're laughing, and that's what we said. No, the rules are you cannot laugh at comments like that. But yeah, you can.
Yeah. See, and I'm the opposite end. I'm just willing to settle on being able to afford a Christmas tree for Christmas. So
I'm going to say one thing. I see Eric Hinelow in here. Eric put together, along with another gentleman who makes his living as a marketing or management consultant in Los Angeles.
What they need to send Jim Hensley to the use of a microphone course.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm so used to being able to talk without it, quite frankly, that I don't need it. I still want to say this is because on their own they put together. I happen to be able to sit in on the panel, but on their own they put together a 6-hour marketing discussion, just like we're having here. And you would say to yourself, "My God, who would sit through 6 hours of talking about square dancing?" These people that came in one meeting, there was like 50 or 60. This last time, I think there was more like 35 or something like that. But these people not only participated in terms of being there, they participated actively. They were broken down into groups, and each group was given the assignment of writing a commercial for television, which is one way to bring out what people really think about needs to be done. I just want to congratulate him and tell him that this is another example, I assume, of pretty much the same thing. It does work. People are interested. They did respond, and it surprised the heck out of me. I got to tell you that. But there is a lot of interest in trying to correct this. We, for so long, have said in our minds that people have given up on square dancing, and that ain't so. The task is simple, as they say. The obstacles are gigantic, but not insurmountable. I just want to call that to your attention.
So, Mike brought up attire. So maybe we could start talking about attire. That's, what's the matter? Can you not hear me okay? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, could you use the microphone?
I thought he was going to be Jerry. Yeah, that's right. We have a special guest. Bob Riggs, Denver, Colorado. Attire has been made way too much of, my opinion. I tell my folks that are learning how to do modern Western square dancing, I want you to feel like a lady. I want you to feel like a gent. This is what you're going to see. Come the way you want. They do. They enjoy themselves. It's a great non-excuse.
Let me take the other side of the coin. Let's look at the Leave It to Beaver reruns. And we see Barbara Billingsley dressed the way she is in that show. And it looks exactly like the old Sets in Order handbook at that point. There's absolutely no difference in their clothing. My mother danced for years, never bought a square dance outfit in a square dance store. She bought it in a local fashion shop because that was the dress style at the time. Skirts and so forth were flared out. There was no need to buy specialty clothing. You look at anybody today out in the store, and there's a great deal of difference between store, movie theaters, anywhere else they go outside, and what we have in our square dance halls is square dance clothing. It seems to me that we have made a real drawn line in the sand between what you should look like as a square dancer and what normal people look like that didn't exist in our heyday in the 50s.
If I might clarify, I'm not saying that what I'm seeing in my square dance hall is square dance attire. I'm seeing ladies in skirts and blouses, predominantly. I'm not seeing as many petticoats as I used to because I don't make a big deal out of it. So they're showing up in prairie skirts, prairie dresses, floor length, waltz length, slightly below the knee length. The only thing that I'm interested in is I want the ladies to feel like ladies who are proud to be escorted to a dance, and I want the gentlemen to feel like gentlemen proud to escort a lady to a dance. That's the limit of what I'm giving them as direction. We're trying to, I think somebody's trying to fix Jim's spotlight. Anyway, that just to clarify that.
Kathy Davenport, Foster City, California. We were running a class a few years ago, and one of the dancers came up to me and said, or to Larry and I actually, and said, we need to do something about these people coming in their blue jeans. Now, I do like my square dance clothes. I wear prairie skirts, but I also like my frillies. That was the last time for a long time that I wore my frillies. I wore jeans. At that time, I was working in a bank, and I wore high heels and a business suit to work, so some nights I wore that. Other nights I wore a skirt and blouse, plain slacks, whatever, just to let them know, especially at that time, those people were young people. I mean, really young people, early 30s, late 20s. I didn't think we wanted to make them feel unwelcome. We need everyone, but surely we need young people. And so I dressed a lot of different ways to let the club know that it didn't matter how people dressed as long as they were neat and clean. You know, that doesn't affect our dancing. And we do need to, I think, lighten up a little bit. It doesn't stop those that love their frillies from wearing their frillies, but we need to make other people welcome if they're uncomfortable in their frillies.
Andy Pennock, Edmonton, Alberta.
What I find the problem with the square dance clothes that are accepted is the cost for people, the new dancers, to get into. And I really think that in what we're doing in our area, we're seeking out people who used to dance that are not dancing anymore because of age, etc., or some other reason, and we're asking for their clothes. And at our new dancer ball and our new dancer dances, we are making these clothes available to them free of charge, and if they want them, they take them. Otherwise, we don't insist on even men wearing long sleeve shirts. If they want to wear a short sleeve shirt, that's fine.
Did people quit dancing as a result of that, Andy? No existing members left square dancing?
Not as far as I'm aware of.
And if someone shows up at a federation or a festival dance, are they asked to leave if they're not in appropriate square dance attire according to that federation or foundation? Certain places that still occurs, but I just wondered, does anybody else have any experience with that, where dancers have been asked to leave or not allowed to dance because of how they appear?
I just want to say one thing about that, because it was an issue. The first 28 people, women that I talked to, non-dancers, when I was doing my survey work, every time they answered the same way. Are they still wearing those short-waisted outfits? As their explanation for not wanting to become a square dancer or even go to a class. Well, after looking at 2 or 3 of these ladies and realizing that she would look very good in a short-waisted outfit, I realized that this is, I think you said, this was a non-issue, but it was the simplest and easiest way for a woman to say, I'm not interested in square dancing. The image she has, the problem image, the wrong image that she has, is too difficult to explain. So for a woman, the dress issue becomes the simple way out. And I think you do have to do something with not giving her that option. You have to find a way. You know, there's a club that I've worked with, and we simply said they were splitting down the middle, so we decided on having 4 themed dances a year. A 50s dance, a themed dance, and each one of these themed dances gave everyone a chance to dress up. And it was okay. Then even the people who wouldn't do this dressed up, because after all they wanted to match the theme. So there are ways around this issue, but you do have to take away that option for people, because they never get to the second and the real issue of why they're not dancing. And it's critical. Whatever way you do it, you need to take away that reason, because it isn't a real reason, but it is certainly one that they use.
Mike Callahan.
Mike Callahan from New York. In the Education Committee meeting this afternoon, USDA showed us a tape they have of kids taking square dance lessons, and it's free. It's free. For anybody who wants it, you can take it, you can copy it. But luckily, the kids are not wearing square dance clothes. They got baseball caps on, shorts, whatever. Just suppose the tape had the kids in petticoats and, you know, the towels hanging down, that type of thing. Would it go anywhere? I don't think so.
Well, that's one thing I observed. My daughter dances with teens on the East Coast, and we're quite lucky that between the Metroplex there's probably 6-7 squares in any given square dance festival hall of teens dancing. It's interesting that when they go out from the festivals to eat and whatever, the first thing that disappears is the square dance clothes. Now, it may be more that situation in that particular age group that there is the pressure of what to wear and what you feel like you want to take a stand in public on, and so on and so forth. And so that may be our barrier with certain segments of society. And yes, I do agree that there's a potential this is really a non-issue as such, or it is an issue that disguises what's underneath. But one of my favorite shows is Law and Order. The appearances of impropriety is as bad as impropriety. It's the appearance that causes that to be a problem. It may be used as an excuse, but the point of it is it's out there. And we're sticking our head in the sand if we don't admit it's out there. Now, to some degree, we've admitted that because we've made adjustments in clothes. We've gone with different styles of dresses, as many of the other people out here have pointed out. But it's at the same time, we're unwilling to commit totally to like Kathy's approach, where pantsuits are okay, business suits, stuff along that line. I have experienced a country western group that was in the hall, next to the hall I was working square dance lessons in, and they never seemed to have a clothing problem. It was always people there that were fairly well dressed, different kinds of outfits and so forth. Some were Western, some weren't, whatever. But everybody was all clean and whatever. And I walked up and asked if they had a clothing policy or whatever, and said, no, we just asked one guy to leave one time when it was obvious that he was dirty and whatever and so forth. But it was also, there were more singles that came to this particular dance, and that has kind of a self-enforcing rule about whether you get to dance with somebody of the other sex if you're not particularly clean clothed.
I thought, Mike Hogan from Omaha, thought maybe I would put this in relation to church. A lot of churches today are growing by leaps and bounds and are just huge, and they're doing a lot of things in their services that are a lot different than when I went to church as a kid. First of all, when I went to church as a kid, you dressed up for church, and there was, there were very regimented procedures that were followed with the service. Whether it was, what songs did you sing and when did you sing those, and at what point was there communion or was there communion, and what point was there the offering, and all of those kind of things. Well, today, in some of these churches that are just bursting at the seams, they have huge video projectors, and they have loud music playing, and sometimes they have bands with trumpets, and they get people involved doing a real show in kind of a fun, different way of celebrating God. Now, I don't mean to get religious here on all of you, but if you think about that place of worship and how much it has changed so that we can get people in. If you can turn around and look at all of the people that are in the congregation, those folks, for the most part, are wearing, they're wearing what I would call a business casual type of dress. It's certainly better than they'd sit around the house on Saturday in. But it's not the suit and the tie or the long dress that people wore to church when I was a kid. So is it wrong for us to think about modifying what we expect people to wear to our dance activity? I don't think so. I would love, as a caller, to be able to do some dances where I can wear what I would call a business casual type of attire, which may not be Western cut pants. It may be something closer to what I'm wearing now. It might even be a shorter sleeve shirt like a golf shirt, and some of us are wearing those type of things now to these meetings. I'd like to be able to do some of that at some of the dances that I call. I haven't gone there yet, but I think that if that was acceptable, a lot more folks my age would go, hey, it looks like it's kind of cool. It's fashionable, it's stylish, and it's a lot of fun. As opposed to being where I think a lot of folks, not necessarily just my age, I just think a lot of folks think that the current square dance attire that we demand is not stylish and is not cool.
But what about if you abandon square dance attire, you abandon the tradition, and you abandon our heritage? I mean, you just leave all that behind. How can you do that?
I think that, what I find is that we're only running into a problem of dress with your first-year dancer. By the time the second year comes around, as long as he stays, or he or she, you'll find that they blend into
That's valid.
the
I did a 2-year study on Matt Seastrom's class, and I took the intro. We interviewed him, and 82% of these entering women said, I wouldn't touch that outfit if my life depended on it. And I interviewed him again halfway through, same number. Interviewed him at the graduation, same number. A year later, 62% of those people who said they wouldn't, and in fact bought the class outfit. But it's an option that way. It's not. When I say take away the excuse, I don't mean that. I simply mean make them get to the next level so we can understand and we can correct that problem of why they don't want to square dance. Because I don't think it's just not the reason people are not. It's not the reason people aren't coming, and it's not the reason people leave, although they may tell you that.
By the way, I support relaxed dress. Okay, I was just being a devil's advocate.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Norma Fulton, and I know, and I'm from Belfast, Maine. Can you hear the accent? I know that square dance dress does make a difference. When I look around here, and I see the ladies who looked cute in 1959, in their petticoats and dresses. At the time when I weighed about 96 pounds and looked cute in the same outfit, those same outfits just don't make us feel comfortable anymore. I know people who say, well, I will go to that workshop because I don't have to dress, but I will not go to that Saturday night dance because I do have to put on those square dance outfits. And these are not people who are in the activity for 1 or 2 years. These are people who joined the activity when I did in 1971. The clothing does make a difference.
On the other hand, I certainly have found that someone wearing a pantsuit and a very large posterior, it doesn't look very attractive, and when it's covered by 65 yards of crinoline, it does become cute. And you know, I'm not mocking along the line. I think that there are times when I've seen the situation, and I know that people are complaining about the outfit, and yeah, I thought the outfit makes it look more attractive than the close-fitting pantsuit or jeans that would have been being worn.
The phrase I used was being comfortable.
Yes, and
all right. Okay, but I mean, I guess I agree, but one of the best pieces of advertising we have is when people see square dancers walk into a restaurant, they immediately know that they're square dancers. And it's like one of our absolute best pieces of advertising. If we don't do that, how will people ever know? And remember, I support relaxed stress.
And at the same time, what they see are people walking to square dance. They're square dancers, but something that they are not. That the square dancers walking in square dance clothes, oh, they're square dancers, but that's not me, and that's not who I'm going to be. So there's that both sides of the coin. You can see the distinction of square dancing, but not necessarily something you want to be. But the premise of this session is about the product, right? All the different aspects of the product, and I don't think it's getting radical enough, so I have some ideas here. You ready? Okay. So for some of you who've heard me talk many times today, so I apologize. My name is Eric Hennerlaw. I'm from Crawford, Moderator, California, just above San Francisco. I look at... Oh. Okay. So there's actually, in a big picture, at least the way I look at it, I've been, a little background about me. I've been calling about 23 years, and right now I do a lot of beginner classes. I have a couple plus clubs, and I call through C1, so that's just kind of a snapshot. And many years ago, I was mostly involved in advanced and challenge calling because that's where my heart lies. And, you know, truthfully today, that's not where my heart lies. My heart lies in really getting as many beginners in as possible because I'm watching the top end fall off very quickly. So I see, in a sense, two markets out there for square dancing. A whole market of existing square dancers that are institutionalized with the way things are right now. And most of you know them. They are the dancers you call to in your clubs, primarily heterosexual, primarily older, primarily wearing traditional square dance clothes, and primarily involved with the way things always have been, and probably been dancing a long, long time. They've been in the activity a long time, maybe 10 or 20 years or more. That's fine, and I support that, and I have a lot of groups that I call for that are like that. I'm looking at how we can really make square dancing attractive, all the great parts about square dancing attractive to the less than 50-year-old market. And to do that, to me, the way square dancing is structured today is fundamentally in contradiction to attracting to that market on several fronts. And one of them is clothing. We just talked about that. And going back to what you said a moment ago, Tim, about tradition, and tradition is a two-edged sword. Tradition is good from the standpoint of want to continue and embellishing and embracing that tradition. At the same time, tradition can be a stopping point for a lot of people because they don't want to do that. They want to do something different. They don't want to do it the way... You know, you don't want to listen to your parents' music necessarily when you're growing up. You listen to your rock and roll. Everything changes down the line. So tradition can go both sides. You know, if you get stuck in tradition, you got to channel yourself into a box. Some of the other areas that I think are fundamentally in contradiction with expanding the activity with those under 50 include the music. And I had a talk with a couple of record producers here, and they're doing some great work in music from the 20s and 30s and 40s and turning out some very good music, which is great to sing along with because we all know those familiar songs. And they really are attractive to the existing institutionalized base of dancers. They are not necessarily the same music that is going to be attractive to today's younger people. Now, when we were talking about this earlier, Mike's saying, you know, don't put all your eggs in the 20-year-old basket because they've got other things to do as well. However, the idea is to figure out how we can take something more current in the music and make it... There are certain songs that are ubiquitous for people out there under 50 that are not represented in the square dance world, finding out how we can get that music and get it into the square dance activity. That's a big push that I'm involved with. And if you want, I'll put a little plug here. I'm on the alternative music panel tomorrow, so you can come and talk about that there. The program length, the existing program length, everybody talks about it, and talk about the mainstream, the plus. I'm not going to go into those details here, but the big picture, and Jim was there when we did this marketing thing last month in Southern California. We talked about if you had to talk to a brand new square dancer and say, you love square dancing, or a non-dancer, come into the activity, it'll only take you 44 weeks, every single week, and you can't miss any. But you'll love it if you really commit yourself to it. It's a really hard sell for anybody. So that's fundamentally in contradiction to the way the world looks at it today, which is things in much smaller bites, and how we can take the activity and break into smaller bites and allow them not to be there all the time. How can you make this a casual attendance for a learning class? See, we're stuck that you have to go and you have to be there all the time. How can you make it so they can come and go and come and go and come and go and be an activity? Availability. In a lot of clubs, not all, but I'm being general here, a lot of clubs is really geared around being couples and being a heterosexual couple. We don't make it very available for singles as a whole. We don't market the activity as a singles activity. We market it as a couples activity. We don't really market across ethnic lines. You see, it's generally a white Anglo-Saxon type of activity. We don't go into the inner cities to do our product. We don't see a lot of gay and lesbians in the straight community. Gay and lesbian have their own community, but we don't necessarily open them with welcome arms within our community, with the straight community. We don't see many youth or families involved. Again, there are exceptions. There are youth and family clubs out there, but do we market the activity as a youth and family-oriented activity? I don't see that now. It's an area that I really want to look at. So the other thing, too, if you look at square dancing as a club, square dancing often are clubs that are kind of set aside as a non-profit or an association run by officers. Is that the best way to do it? There are a lot of people who just want to come and do something, but they don't want to get involved with all the machinery to make a club happen. Some callers run workshops, but there are other avenues and other vehicles for producing square dancing, and the club isn't necessarily what everybody wants to get involved with. So there's a whole myriad of items that are really in contradiction to the way the Gen Xers, Gen Yers, and the boomers, the lower boomers, are looking at how they want to be involved in an activity. So there, I've opened up 27 things here. Who wants the mic?
A couple people ahead of you, so.
Those are, Mike or Eric, those are all really good. And I think that that's part of the process is to identify all those 27 things that you talked about. I guess the next step, this panel is about what do you think we should do about each of them. And so if
I have one thing. I'm George Rollo from San Antonio. You ever heard of that place? As far as the traditional dress is concerned, we talk about traditional dress in that form, but the traditional dress actually goes back to the pioneer costumes, which were there when I started dancing in 1954. So tradition from which tradition? And the tradition 10, 20 years from now is going to be a different tradition than what we got now. Thank you.
I got number 28 for Eric. The theme of the convention is winning ways, and we're here and we get all enthusiastic about hearing winning ways from other people, and then we try to go back to our own area where the clubs are executive run or officer run. No, it's been tried before. No, and there's no enthusiasm. How do we build enthusiasm with the dancers that we have right now?
That's one of the reasons why we went towards the winning ways approach on things, is simply, people accuse us of preaching to the choir. Well, the choir is really demoralized at this point in time. We got to get them pumped up. And part of it is proving that it's not all defeated out there, that there are ways to go about doing things, ways that are within your reach, and ways of being positive at it, that it's not just one isolated story, but that there are stories of success. The thing that Jim came to us about and we have discovered in the process here is that, yes, we as national organizations can work with the other national organizations. The problem all of us have is communicating beyond that level. We can't get down to our state structures. Then we can't get from the state to the local, to the clubs, and to the individual dancers. We are at our wits' end. You know, not everybody reads. We discover hardly anybody reads. And as a result, it doesn't matter how much you print, where you print, and where you stick it up. Nobody's going to notice that information. And it's almost, you need to shake them and go pay attention for just 3 seconds while I tell you about this. And we just are really frustrated as trying to get information passed along. At the National in Anaheim, we put out part of the marketing survey results as hints to how clubs could do things at the lesson group level in order to be able to retain people in lessons better. We printed 10,000 sheets with the hope that some caller would come back with a real mad on, complaining about what he got from some dancer they brought it back from the National. And we never got one. And we distributed that everywhere. I mean, and we had them in the bathrooms. We had them anywhere where anyone could pick it up and read it, with the hopes that somehow we could skip a couple levels, get to the grassroots, and get the information out there. And so, yes, the Internet's a wonderful place, and we can develop all kinds of ways, but until we start getting some network of getting information passed along to the individual dancer, we're always going to have a problem of misinformation out there. And it's going to be what they observe. And what they observe is, we didn't have enough for lessons, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, we're not doing anything, nobody wants to run for office, nobody wants to do the work in the clubs, nobody wants to do this. You've heard all these stories before. And it's that litany we constantly hear out there. And until we give them some kind of information that change their minds, we're going to get that defeated attitude. And we got to get them pumped up. And that's why we went with Winning Ways. And that's why we hope that we'll get more and more of those stories out there, like the ones you brought back.
Dave Harry, Seattle area. I'd like to talk on frequency of dance, or frequency of starting lessons and whatever. We started a program up in the Seattle area. It's called the 4x4 program, and our little theme on it was 4 weeks, 4 fun, $4. You know, it costs $4 to do it. 4 couples. 4 couples has 4 couples on a square, not 4 only couples. You know, the program, in some ways, is a success story, and in some ways, it's a dismal failure. It's a success story in that every first Friday of the month, we have a beginning set of lessons that start, and we base the program on 30 movements. And at the end of the 4-week cycle, we've covered those 30 movements, and if you didn't quite understand them all, or you're having difficulties with them, you could start the cycle over again. The first hour and a half, we teach the movements. The second hour and a half in the evening is a dance based on the entire 30 movements on the list. Every month, we end up with some brand new people in the program and dancing. So that's the part of the program that's successful for us, in that every month there's a chance for somebody to come in and take a look at the activity and decide whether they like square dancing or don't like it. The failure part of the program is that we can't convince the local square dancers that this is a viable program and that they need to consider coming out and supporting it and dancing at the program, so that we can fill the halls, so that when those people come in and look at our activity, they see a success story rather than looking around saying, I had a great time tonight, but there's nobody here. You know, and that's the problem that we're up against right now. We've actually put dancers into clubs. I mean, there have been people that have come through our 4x4 program and then gone on to take the rest of the square dance program. But we've also had people that have sampled it, you know, and told us, you know, that they've had a great time, and we'll call them on the phone and say, yeah, we really enjoyed ourselves, but they haven't come back since, you know. We've recruited teenagers into the program. We've recruited young adult families. We've had the whole spectrum of square dancers in it. But our problem is that we can't get the square dancers themselves out to come out and look at the program and make it work. If anybody's interested in the program, I brought some information sheets and some flyers. Actually, the flyer that we hand out the first night to the dancers that come and join us. So it gives you kind of a background information on it. We think it would fly if we could get the dancers in our area to actually back it. They'll back it with their money, you know, as far as the clubs putting in. We had clubs put in like $300, $100 per 3 of the clubs that sponsored it, and I think we had $300 or $400 from the council to sponsor it. But they won't personally come out and support it. and therefore there's no place for these people to go when they finish the dance program to dance.
But
do you get how that really separates the two markets?
yeah, but so
the institutionalized market versus the new market.
well, of course, they're not going to support it because if you just look at what Eric said, Eric has a vision. If I may paraphrase, may I paraphrase? And if I'm wrong, just jump in. But Eric has a vision of targeting a whole new market full of people who are under the age of 40, who are more relaxed about how they appear, who dance to more modern music, who abandon the whole program idea altogether, that he makes a place for people to come once a year or once every 6 months or every week. He would like the activity to abandon the whole idea about it being a couple activity or couple-based activity. He wants to entice singles in. He wants to entice all ethnic groups in, and the gay and lesbian population to be part of this activity. He would like to get youth into it, and he wants to abandon the whole club infrastructure entirely, and we really want to have it very enthusiastic. That is so opposite of what square dancing is now. So we've got Eric's identification of what he thinks square dancing should be, and we've got our existing square dancing over here. The question is, will they ever come together? And if they can never come together, should they always be separate? And how much effort will we be able to take from our existing population of square dancing, which, by the way, will be the resource that we use to populate this activity over here that they don't support, it would appear?
It's a great question, and I really appreciate... Where is he? Oh, okay. It couldn't be that bad. It couldn't be that bad. It's the single biggest problem we have, and it comes down to a mindset. 30 years ago, this process started, and no one understood the problem. No one really appreciated that they didn't know why people were not coming, and they blamed themselves. You know, it's on my watch that this wonderful historical tradition is going down the tubes. Human nature being what it is, I blame myself. I double my effort. It doesn't work because I still don't know why. And then I start to project this blame out because survival says we will not blame ourselves for just so long. The essence of what I'm saying is this. There is no answer except to sit down with these people. One of the guys who I first started with on this thing, Marty Furstenberg, is no longer with us, is dead. Marty felt absolutely that this activity had to die. He spent a lot of time trying to convince me of this when I first started on this program. And to be restarted as team dancing or partner dancing or, what's the one they use, geomotion. And I argued with him for a long time on a basic key thing. I said, Marty, if it isn't corrected and it dies this way, what makes you think when it starts up again it won't include the same problems? And he had no answer. Marty was due to be at my house the day after he died. So there are people who feel this way strongly. And Marty had a background in advertising. He was not a dumb guy. He was very bright. That's why I was asked to work with him. The only explanation, the only answer is you've got to find a way to sit down with these people. First, you have to give them the hope that there is a way to learn to do this. And first, you have to make sure that they can understand there is a real program that really works. You've got to do that. And we owe that to them in terms of communication. Mike's already addressed that. If we don't get the communication to them, we can't blame them for not changing their mind. But at that given moment in time, they have to know that this activity can no longer be an immortal hobby. It has been an immortal hobby for the last 50 years. It can no longer be that because it's too much competition in the marketplace. The only reason I'm going for sponsorship is that in the next 10 years, no single social activity in this country that exists and grows will not be unsponsored. Everything will be sponsored, including your churches. The truth of the matter is, it has to have this assistance, and they have to know that these changes have to take place, but it doesn't have to be the violent change that people worry about. I remember the first day I presented this, Doc and Peg sat down and said to me, "You're not going to take away our tradition?" Of course not. The sponsor loves your heritage and your tradition. They wouldn't let go of it for a minute. It's part of the image they want. But to not change the way you present this to people is a death knell, because this group of people thinks differently, the boomers and the Xers. Nothing wrong with it, but they may, for instance, see it as an exercise. And there's nothing wrong with that unless it's in your mind. So these people, first you got to communicate honestly with them and sincerely, and they have to have a chance to change their mind. And then you have to say, look, it's up to us. I said this in the first article I wrote when I came in here. 10 years from now, if we have very little square dancing, the blame will not absolutely be anywhere but within ourselves as individuals. There is a solution, and it will work because your product is good. But if you don't make up your mind that there has to be some changes, but those changes aren't going to be dramatic, I mean, the solution is simple. The obstacles are gigantic, but not insurmountable. And that's what you have to get across. They have been discouraged for 30 years, folks. It's hard to change when you've been that way for 30 years, but they can. And we owe it to them to give them the full story. We owe it to them to make sure that they are part of the solution. The reason for this fundraising program is not just to get the money, it's to get people back involved in a positive way, in a positive growth cycle on this activity. If they don't feel they're part of it, they won't want to change. They don't feel they're part of it, they want to listen to you. You know, the Dalai Lama that said, open your arms to change, but don't let go of your values. And that's what we're talking about.
Bob Riggs from Denver. We keep talking about a product. There's not one. I have a whole product line.
Right.
Okay? And so when I talk about the current club, I'm a club caller, Mainstream Plus. I did 60 parties last year. From Girl Scouts to youth camps to guest ranches to you name it. Okay? When I talk about a product, I'm talking about I'm an independent businessman who offers a series of products to a selected market sector. Eric is talking about a market sector he wants to address. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm addressing these market sectors, and if you look at the back of my business card, you'll see that the things that I do. Okay? I go to my clubs and I say, do you realize what product you're offering? I'm offering a product to you as an independent contractor, but do you realize what product you're offering your constituents, your clients? And so when we talk about a mainstream dance or a plus dance with rounds and da-da-da-da-da, that's a product. And I don't think the clubs in general across the country think of what they offer as a product. And if they did, they would, I ask a club this. I said, do you know what your product is? And I said, what do you want that product to be in 2 years? Who's going to buy your product in 2 years? How are you going to get buyers for what you're selling? And what we're really talking about is getting people to understand that they have a product, getting people to understand that it may have to evolve. And if it doesn't evolve, the product will cease to sell. I know what I'm offering as a product as an independent businessman, and my product is expanding. I have a growing market, and I'm getting more of my market sector that I'm going after as an independent businessman. I'm getting more club dances, I'm getting more church dances, I'm getting more camps, because I've defined my product. Each one of us as a caller need to understand our product and need to be able to market it. Each one of our organizations that we're working with, we need to encourage them to develop their product. If we think in terms of we have product of square dancing and it's mainstream dancing or plus dancing or just square dancing, we haven't differentiated it enough to be able to differentiate the market sector. And yes, all the things that Eric's talking about, there's a piece of the market that you have to tune the product to sell it to them. If we're unwilling to change and create that market, then that piece of the market is going to disappear. It's just like any product.
And that's really the true identification of our situation. Eric's identified a wonderful area. And are you willing to make the effort to do that? That's the key question. And so, I mean, just a second. We pretty much know what our alternatives are, and yet we have a comfort zone and a certain amount of predictability with what we have right now. I know when I am called by a square dance club, and I know what the dance is going to be like. I can pretty much predict what time I'm going to start, when I'm going to be able to get home, because I know when that dance is going to be over. I knew I do X amount of things in X amount of ways, and people will applaud at the end of a tip. I will be successful within my little world. There was a wonderful movie with Danny DeVito. It was Color of Money, and he talked about the last buggy whip maker that was making buggy whips. They had the whole market covered, because they were the only buggy whip maker left. But it was, what was the meaningfulness of their situation when they were making the last 5 buggy whips that were needed? Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm Ray Ainsworth. I'm from Eros, Louisiana. I'd like to maybe pull this Jerry Stringer thing on you, but I'm not a caller. I consider myself a square dancer. My wife is a caller. We have experienced a great deal of success and failure since she's become a caller. One of the things we've done, though, is created 2 clubs from nothing. I believe in attending 2 CALLERLAB conventions that there seems to be a tendency within the convention and the established community of square dancing to want to hold on to the past. We find that our successes have been where we have done things differently than the established community was doing at the same time. Clubs in our areas are dwindling like all over the United States. Where we've had success with clothing, for instance, we don't require the traditional attire. We formed a club from 22 new dancers who decided among themselves what they would like to wear. They all chose to go to the prairie skirts. None of them wear the traditional fluffy skirt. So, at one time we had 37 kids active, teenagers from 12 to 14 years old. That's because we found something fun for them to do, and we also made it fun for them to dance with older people. But when we did demonstrations and so on, we tried to include the full gamut of what we had, from a 9-year-old to a 80-year-old. And I'd really like to see, as a dancer, more openness towards trying some new things. One of the other things we've been successful in is we have and we advocate the multi-cycle teaching program. If we've got one student to teach, we teach that one student. We don't stop a class because we only were able to bring in one. And we've had one student in a class. We've also had 22 in a class and completed with 22. So I'd like to see more of the openness toward something new, and to me that does not offend or take away from the established tradition. If a square dancer wishes to wear the traditional clothing, let them wear that. If they wish to come and have fun and wear what they'd like to have, well, let them have that too. Thank you.
Eric, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I was going to echo. It doesn't matter. I was going to echo.
Microphone. You know the rules.
I'm sorry. Yes. I was going to echo. Okay. Thank you. I was going to echo what Mike was saying, and going back to it really is what that product looks like and what product we're defining for. What the club is defining as a product going out, what we as a caller is defining as a product we're offering to the dancers, and making sure that we know where and making sure we're addressing the product to the correct audience. Half of my Saturday night business is from one-night stands. Party nights that I do. I do that much one-night stand business. I really enjoy it. I also am clear about the product I define, and I put that on my website. So my website is very clear about who I am and the product I offer for people and I have 3 different audiences my website addresses for that thing. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm offering as a food for thought for people and what they want to offer in their websites. Most of you guys hopefully will have some kind of website that says who you are and what product you're offering along that line. So I want to make sure that that is a product that my product is clearly defined and is out there in the public eye, in the media, in this case a website, and on my business cards and all of that. So
I'm going to put two people on the spot, if you don't mind. Jim Masco is from the USA West Policy Board and also is a parliamentarian for USDA. If I got it correct. Good. And Avi Herndon is from the California Square Dance Council. You both are active in square dance club organizations or club-oriented organizations and represent much more of contact with the dancer opinion. You think that the average square dance club is going to feel very comfortable with some of the brave new worlds that are being identified here? And what do you think the dancer response to some of these things are? And I think it'd be useful for our callers to think about some of those subjects. Yeah. If we can take the mic back to Jim. Yeah.
I think the dancers are equally as desperate to try anything that's going to work. I don't think that, I think they're getting over the fact that we tried it, it won't work. My attitude has for a long time been, maybe it didn't work for you because you did it wrong. I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to do it right, and it's going to succeed. So let's not say no to any idea. Let's try whatever ideas are presented and take them back and share them with the other dance leaders. That's why we participate in CALLERLAB and take away an enthusiastic attitude like most of you go home with. We share that enthusiasm and appreciate being included in your open discussions. And I do believe that we can continue to communicate amongst our organizations, which that's where this alliance is headed. And I think that it's definitely a great step forward to get the word out. Granted, you can't make people read. You can put it in front of their face 100 times, but unless they bother to put forth the effort to at least absorb it, I think that maybe they listen a little better than they read, and if they are willing to participate in educational programs and marketing sessions such as this that are trickling down to the local level to a certain degree, but just not enough. Are they?
Yes, I think one of the things that did come out here is showing enthusiasm for the activity. I think your winning ways is a good thing. I just know from the leadership standpoint in the association level and the club level, people are tired, and they're trying to recruit new leadership positions, and they can't get people to volunteer. Well, part of it is if they're not enthusiastic about it, you're not going to get people to want to come in and do it. And one of my mottos is you have to make it look like fun, okay, to get people to take positions. It is fun to be president of a club. It is fun to be president of an association or state council or whatever. Okay, that's one. The other part of it is that in trying the new things, I know in my community I was trying to get square dancing in the city program under Park and Rec, and it failed, okay, and I of course was devastated. Took a little personal there for a little while, but I realized that part of it was the caller wasn't ready to deal with it. He was still hanging on to the old ways that you have to go through the 9-month course. It was a situation where it was a 10-week course. Okay, so what can you teach in 10 weeks? And I know I attended a session this morning, and one of the topics that came up was one position dances. Just doing one thing and making a whole tip out of it or something. And I think maybe that's a new approach to try, and I'm going to try and go home and talk it up to some of the callers back there. Turn it around a little there. Thank you.
Well, it's going back to Andy here. It appears to me that there was just a Dave Harry, right, from Washington, said he had a successful recruiting program centered around everything kind of that we have identified as either problems or solutions to those problems, based on kind of like what Eric was saying. But you described the bad part of that is not getting the clubs to buy into it. And Jim just indicated that people are desperate and they are preparing to try anything, and yet you're still having trouble with that. And I also have trouble with getting clubs at home to buy into this idea. And so maybe there's some effort can be spent brainstorming how or if the clubs should be trying to put these people together. Because absolutely, the reconciliation of that differences can make or break either of those. If the market product line is always going to stay separate to always different markets, that's fine. If our intention is at some point to bring them together into one big marketplace, that's fine too. But maybe there has to be some discussion with respect to how that difference is going to be solved, or if it's going to be solved.
Andy Pennock again from Edmonton. I think a lot of the problem lies in the communication skills between the Callers Association and the Dancer Association in a lot of areas. I attended a seminar a few years ago, and the question was, what's wrong with square dancing today? And one of the fellows got up there and said, how do I tell my caller that we don't want you anymore? They were actually afraid to approach their caller and say that they don't want him there anymore, they want to change him. To my mind, that's a lack of communication, not only from the caller's point of view, but also from the dancers. And I think that we've got two associations or two groups of people that need to work together in order to resolve the situation, one way or the other. We enjoy a very good association with our local dance association, to the point where we have a representative attending their meetings, and they have a representative attending our meetings, and the information flow goes back and forth. So,
there's a comment we had at lunch that Jerry Junk made, and Jerry, if you wouldn't mind sharing, stop looking blank, and we'll. If you recall what you talked about, what the minister said.
Oh.
Yes, and
okay.
I think it would be very good at this point to point out something.
Jerry Junk, Nebraska. I read an article in our local newspaper in Wayne, Nebraska, written by a minister who was talking about problems they're having within the church. And it's about getting people to socialize. And he ran a series of events from World War II on. He said the guys came home from World War II and started their families, and they all built little bungalows with open porches on the front. And everybody sat outside on the porch, and the people would walk by. You knew every single neighbor in your neighborhood, and you did things as a group. Everybody in the neighborhood did. But he said then along came the advent of the barbecue pits back behind the house. So he said people put up walls. They built a fence, and they would have a barbecue back there, and they would sit back there. But then it was only friends and family that were invited, and consequently we reduced the size of our social experience. He said later on, following that, came air conditioning, and people moved indoors, and then only family came to visit. You didn't know who walked by the front of the house. And he said, now we further exacerbated that problem with the advent of, what do they call those things? Computer, no. In an office place, you're in a little cubicle.
Yeah.
You're in a little cubicle, and he said people can no longer communicate. And he said, in fact, to a great degree, people are afraid to communicate unless they're looking at a screen and typing. He said, we no longer have an interaction of thoughts between people. And he said, we have simply isolated ourselves from society. One of the things about our activity that's almost a turnoff to people on the start is we're a very touchy-feely, huggy community. We are indeed a family. And if you start doing yellow rocks too early in lessons, you're going to turn people off instantly. Not because they're afraid of you, but it's such a shock, a social shock almost, to see people do that. And the reason is we've become isolated. We're no longer used to being, as a society, as a social gathering,
And I thought the article by the minister was extremely cognizant, because we have become very, very isolated and almost afraid of human contact.
This is Bob Elgin, not a caller. We're past chairman of Legacy. And ever since we started square dancing, we kept hearing the thing that square dancing is the best kept secret in the world. And we keep trying to keep that in force, because who recognizes people as square dancers? I mean, I spent 30 years in the product design area, and any product we designed it so it would be out there. We could present it as a product, and it was recognizable. Who do we recognize as square dancers now? As one of you gentlemen said, that you used to go out and go into restaurants, and people said that they came up to you and asked you about square dancing. And everybody isn't a square dancer. Jim mentioned that there are 10,000 people over turning 50 years old. And why aren't we promoting that? I mean, what's wrong with being 50, 55? And through Legacy surveys, we determined that the people who do join square dancing at the age of 50 and over remain a lot longer than the youth. We have nothing against youth. We need youth. But in order to salvage our activity now, I think we need to do something that is going to put some life into it now, and also work with the youth to bring it up in the future. And one of the questions I would like to ask is, what do I tell my corner now? It used to be that every woman liked to get dressed up and look beautiful, and Saturday night come out and dance, and I used to be able to turn to my corner and say, boy, you sure do look nice tonight. What do I say to them now whenever they're there in Reebok shorts and a tank top? I don't like to lie.
There is an interesting aspect. Yes, teens have never been a significant percentage of our activity at any given point in time. At the same time, just looking at some of my colleagues around the room, how many of you started calling as teens? It may be that where our future calling talent is dried up is because we don't have this development of teen dancers, which produce a lot of the teen callers that have turned out to become our current crew of adult callers. It was at one of the EC meetings, Jim asked everybody on our current EC started as a teen in calling at one time or another, and it may be a great source of where our entertainers come from, even though the majority of our dancers may start at 50, and that they're the ones we retain.
And just one other thing, that might be what Mike was just saying about all of us. The leaders of the activity are quickly becoming the past teen college of the past, and that's probably why it's easier for us to accept the fact that we need to make product change versus the marketplace that we currently operate within find it more difficult to change, because they don't have the benefit of being youths like we was.
I got a couple of comments, and then I want to share some stuff. I'm Jerry Lynn from Killeen area up here near Fort Hood. We all talk about the problems that we've got in square dancing, and I think when I go and look at my hometown, we don't have any problems in square dancing. Society's got problems. When I go up there, the Eastern Star is dead, the Masonic Lodge is dead, almost completely the churches are just one step from being dead. And the one church that's thriving is doing like this gentleman was talking. They revived, and they started wearing sport clothes instead of the old-fashioned way, and they're doing new things that the younger people are interested in. We're locked behind it, as he was saying. We're locked behind our own cubicle, and we're not getting out at all. It's not just square dancing. Square dancing's not broke. Society's broke. Now, how do I sell my product in that broke society? As I go down the road and I look, coming into my Killeen up here, signboards are hitting me all the way in, but I don't see one of them that says square dancing on it. It says Luby's, and it says Motel 6, and it says McDonald's, and it says Coca-Cola, and it says everything but square dancing. Well, okay, I'm not getting the word out to my people. When I talk to the people that come to my class, I'm finding out I'm not getting the word out to them. I'm getting more people saying, I've looked for square dancing for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years, and I feel almost ashamed because I'm not getting that word out to those people somehow. Sponsorship, I need that bad. I went to my local association and we stirred up enough crap up there that I got into their money bucket, and now every club in our association up there that will produce the receipts for advertisement of any kind, they'll be reimbursed $120 out of the local association for that money. Well, the state of Texas has started a program like that. It's real weak and wimpy right now, but we're working on trying to get into their $250,000 they got stashed away. And if they would dump some of that into promotion, because what do you see on TV? You see the promotion of it. Whatever product it is they're selling, you're seeing the promotion, the pushing it, till you get sick and tired of it almost. But they want you to buy a Chevy. They want you to buy whatever it is. They're pushing it with money. Money is what drives the train. Well, how do I do that in my local area? I couldn't get any money. My club didn't have any money. I went down to Walmart. Now, this is just some examples of what you could try. It doesn't work in every area, I'm sure. It's working in my area, guys. I went down to Walmart. I bought a $200 Walmart gift certificate out of my pocket. And I said, Club, we're going to have a raffle. We're going to sell tickets on this gift certificate here, and we're going to fund promotion, newspaper ads for square dance classes. We sold 1,000 tickets. I pulled $200 out of there to pay for the Walmart thing, had a drawing. Somebody got $200 Walmart. Everybody's happy. I sold $800 worth of advertisement in the papers. All of a sudden, I went from getting 3 and 4 old decrepit people that somebody would drag in because that's all they know, because that's all I've got in the club, to 22 students. Okay? The next year, I had 12. The next year, 9/11 come along and just ate our lunch, and we had like 6. But this year, I'm back to 12. Next year, I'm going to be back to 22 if I can get enough money to get that out in the front of the people. The other thing that I'm noticing, and I'm tacking, they're talking about not being able to keep students committed for 30 weeks. You're talking about 4-week thing. I'm shooting at it a different way, and it's working. Once I get the word out to the people, there's only 1/100th of 1% that's in here. I don't care if I'd feed it to him, he wouldn't be interested. But that one small percent, the only reason they're interested is they got 2 needs. They got a social need, and they got a need to have fun. If I can fill those 2 things from the time they walk in the door until the time that they graduate, I've got them. I've never lost a student because of commitment to class or duration of class or any of that, because what happens is that once we close open house, I don't ever call it a class. I don't ever call them students. I say, you have just come out into this social activity it's a community thing. You're going to elect a president, you're going to elect a secretary and a treasurer. We're going to have parties. We're going to learn square dancing along the way, but the main thing is that we're going to have fun. We're going to have at least 1 party a month, and we're going to have 1 social thing a month. I don't care what it is, but you guys are going to get together and decide it. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to figure out how to gain enough money to pay for your graduation, because I rent a hall and I rent a professional caller to come in and help with that graduation, because that's the best or the most important dance that student will ever have is his graduation or hers. Oh, all of a sudden they got a mission. They got a social product, and they're beginning to work on it, and they get together and they vote and they elect these people and they put them together, and lo and behold, pretty soon they're telling me how things are going to work. And I've never had anybody say, well, 30 weeks is just too long. Because they already are fulfilling that social need. I don't care what they wear. I'd like to smell them smelling good. And if I get one that's bad, somehow we'll get the word across to him. But they wear whatever they want to. The club has finally bought into that. They come and wear whatever they want to. And they're just having an every week blast up there, going through these 30, 35 weeks. In fact, this year it'll be 36 weeks. And the students changed it on me just the other day, last Tuesday night, as a matter of fact. They had gotten together, and 3 or 4 of them wasn't going to be able to be there for the graduation date they'd set, so they had changed the graduation. I said, you can't do that. I might not be here. They said, well, tell us when we can do it. And I looked through the calendar, and I picked a date, and now they moved it up to June. It was in May. Well, they're not in a hurry to get out there. They're having fun. They're having fun, and they're meeting their social need. What else can we do to sell this thing, guys?
Sounds like effort when it gets down to it. You got 15 seconds, Jim.
1, 2. I just want to. Here's a microcosm of what we just got finished talking about over here. Can it be done? Yeah, it's been done. It's being done. Is this the only one in the world that can do that? No. But someone had enough program, faith, creativity to make it work. The other thing I want to quickly reinforce, he said about a social club. All the research we've done shows a very interesting thing, that 20% of the people in your club are not there to dance. They could care less, and that really hurts me right in the heart. They're not hooked on square dancing. They're there because they want to have a social experience. You know, the club I worked with, Mike Seastron's club, has every other month they go to live theater together. They go to have great parties in the summertime, swimming ports. They go camping 4 times a week. You know, there are people in there that they're there in spite of the dancing. So you should spend some time on your social program, at least half of what you spend, or a fifth of what you spend on your dance program. Don't forget what he just said. They're there for social reasons.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we have to cut off because we need to end. Sorry. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for sharing. Let me put one thought in your mind. We need to redefine our product. Then the defining moment of square dancing is not recycle. It's circle left. It gives us a whole bunch of more customers if we think that way. Thank you all. Have a good day.